Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to Safer Internet Day 2022. Now this show, thank you very much for giving up your time to join us this morning. This show is being recorded, so if you do have young children around you, I'm afraid we will be talking about some rather adult subjects, so please do come back and watch us at another time. This workshop, the internet is amazing. It has joined into our world in so very many different ways. In the 30 years that it's been in our world, in our homes, and in the 15 years that it's been in our pockets, it's joined in our psyche. We don't necessarily hold the same information. We instantly think, oh, I'll just Google that. All of human understanding and knowledge is at our fingertips. And it is amazing that we can shop when we want, we can talk when we want, we can have access to skills that we would never have learned before, all from the amazing power of the internet and the reliability of the internet. Now, think about how different the pandemic might have been if we didn't have the internet with us today. Forgive me, I also should have said. Obviously, if you do have any questions, please do post them in the comments below. I'll be doing my best to monitor the comments as we go, and I'll also we'll be keeping the comments live, so hopefully you can add to them later on if you do have any other questions. So the internet is certainly ingrained in our lives. Its reliability is something that we all enjoy and we all take for granted. The pandemic would have been so very different without it. And likewise, we can offer our children amazing opportunities to learn new things and to cater new things. And it's that thought that actually their lives are going to be so much more online than ours have ever been. We've all grown up with the internet to a certain extent, but they're going to grow up with it in a very different relationship to what we have with it as well. As we know as well, it can offer some brilliant support for some children or for some of us adults. If we're going through something in our lives that isn't necessarily the easiest thing to talk about with other people, we can look on YouTube and we can enjoy how other people have posted videos about how they might have got through that same situation. We can offer the creativity, we can learn new skills, as I've already mentioned, that we never would have thought of before. And it's all thanks to this amazing power of the internet. All this human understanding and knowledge is at the power of our fingertips. But likewise, its captivating, its reliability has been put to bad use, and that's what we need to be very aware of today. There are so many ways that it is dangerous for us as adults, and it's dangerous for our children. As soon as the internet was developed, it was being used for harm. And this is the problem with its flexibility and its reliability. It's very quickly being turned to no good. Now, everything is becoming a bit of an afterthought. If you think about how much we don't really control our information when we're online, we don't appreciate actually how much information is being monitored by Google, by Apple. And that's what our children are starting to grow up into, and we need to be really aware of what is going on. They face so many dangers in so very many ways. It's important that we are there to try and protect them. Now, lots of us have grown up with the internet to some extent, and we've enjoyed it, and we've never had a problem. But online safety is something that's becoming ever more of a problem. I've likened it to road safety before. We naturally teach our children to be careful around roads. We teach them to look left, to look right. We teach them to not run across the road. We walk across. That's ingrained in our society that we need to be careful around roads. And sadly, yes, there are still risks. There are still things that happen. But we are always talking about it. Now, another fantastic online safety expert has also compared it to swimming. If you think about when we're first taking our children swimming, we give them rubber bands, we give them the armbands, we take them to a dedicated swimming pool with a a trained lifeguard. We get in the pool with them. We're talking to them. We're showing it to them and guiding them through it. And as they gain older, as they gain more confidence, we take away the things so that they can experience a bit more risk, because we know they now have the confidence to overcome them. And this is the problem, though, of online safety, is we are very happy to just throw them in at the deep end. We don't give them the guidance, the training that they need to make sure they're safe online. Now, thankfully, lots of our children never have a problem. But just like when you're walking along a road, just like when you're going swimming, there is still a risk there, and we need to do all we can to mitigate those risks for our children. Now, a story I'm about to read you, I'm afraid, isn't the easiest to listen to, but it shows the dangers that are out there. And it's really important we do listen to these sorts of stories so we're aware of them. We first see her age 7. We stop seeing her when she's 11. She sometimes styles her long brown hair in a plait or ponytail. We see her green eyes firmly fixed on the comments and the messages below. She's still in primary school. Cuddly toys are scattered over her bed, and her bedroom has been adorned with fairy lights. We see her twice a day, every day, in our helpline. Becky films herself in the family bathroom. It's clean, it's bright. And she also films herself in the bedroom. It's clear that she's being directed by someone, or maybe many people. She pauses to read comments on the other side of the live stream, or instructions before acting out what she's been asked to do. It's clear Becky is not alone at home. She jumps at the noise outside of the bathroom, and her reaction is immediate. She looks nervous and quickly will stop filming. In a third of all recordings that we see of Becky, she's been encouraged to use everyday items from her bedroom and bathroom in, let's say, the worst possible way. In legal terms, this is category A sexual activity. There's no clues as to where Becky is. On our helpline, we wonder if she is one person grooming her online, or if there's many. Is she aware of how her video is being shared? We doubt she knows that the live stream is being recorded, copied, and shared with those with reprehensible interests. I'm sorry that is such hard reading. Sorry, that's hard to listen to. And that's a story of one of so very many from the Internet Watch Foundation, a fantastic charity that work to remove child sexual exploitation materials from the Internet. As you can see, they've had over 153,000 cases this year, and the worrying thing is that 44% of those were self-generated material, children being directed on their mobile phones to produce these sorts of materials. And this is the very worrying thing. These people are getting organised. They are very quick to outrun the legal law, challenging them. They think up new ways of gaining access to the things that they want. In some groups, you have 3 levels of workers. You have the hunters that will go across streams like TikTok, Roblox, YouTube, and they'll look for the children that are on their own, dancing in their bedrooms. We then have the talkers that will start to talk with these children, start to convince them, start to flourish them with compliments, and will slowly start to groom them. And then we have the loopers that once the initial material has been sourced, they keep on going, they keep on dragging it through. They can turn a conversation sexual from first meeting to in about 3 minutes. Now, the majority of these children are sadly girls, but we need to be aware that this does also happen for boys. And we can also see from the graph in front of you that so very many of this is in our age group. It's in the primary school children that we work with, or you are parents too. Now, the fact is that CSAM is just one of so very many dangers that our children face. We have loot boxes that are teaching them to gamble. We have video age ratings that are being ignored, so they're being exposed to violence, horror, sexual activity. We also have them looking at other things. We also have them being exposed to social media too early. And this is a documented problem that we have with our psyche as human beings. We're desensitized when we see things that are shocking, when we're exposed to things. A good example of this is the Romans. They started off with their gladiator fighting, and whilst that soon became quite boring to their crowds, so they then moved on to introducing animals, tigers, lions. As they became boring, they started hunting for more and more exotic animals. As soon as the crowd got bored of those, they then introduced Christians, and eventually they ended up having full naval battles. This desensitization is already having an impact as well on adult sexual health. The amount of pornographic material that's being watched by lots of people is having an impact, and that a normal, healthy sexual relationship is not enough for them. Now, what we don't really know yet is how this is impacting people's views on violence. But what we do know is that children will copy the behaviour they see from everybody around them, people they look up to. We've had cases in schools where children as young as reception thought their parents were in the army because they'd watched them playing Call of Duty, a very graphic game that's nowhere near appropriate for them. And this is before we've even spoke about cyberbullying. Now let's just clarify what that word means first. Bullying, in a real-life sense, is the repetitive, targeted actions. Don't get me wrong, it is a horrible thing to happen, and it really shouldn't happen in our schools or in our society. But we do need to make sure that we're using the bullying word in the right context. It's not a one-off event, but it is a repeated event, and it's targeted. Now, when it comes to cyberbullying, because our children can't escape, they can't remove themselves from those messages. The messages that are on their phones, they're then taking home, and they're invading their safe spaces because they're there. And that's why we need to make sure, and that's why cyberbullying, we say, is one event, one picture, one edited photo, one message. Because people will then jump on the bandwagon, they'll share it around with their friends, with people these children may not know, with people these children may not really know themselves. And these messages keep on repeating, keep on wearing our children down. I often describe it's like a poking in the arm, but it's a poking that just doesn't stop. It keeps on going, and it wears our children down. Now, I apologise for the language in this video, but the reason I've decided to still share it with you is we feel it is a strong message to give you an idea of how bullying can impact our children.
You've got no friends. Everybody hates you. You must get your clothes from a charity shop. Skank. Your hair always looks greasy. Lol. And those teeth look so gross. Like, seriously? You're fat. Disgusting. You've got no friends. Everybody hates you. You must get your clothes from a charity shop. Skank. Your hair always looks greasy. Lol. And those teeth look so gross. Like, seriously? You're fat, disgusting, and ugly. I hope you die. Sleep tight, bitch.
Now, I realise that's not an easy video to watch, but it gives you an idea of how we need to make sure we're protecting our children. 1 in 3 children are impacted by cyberbullying at some point in their primary school career. The age that our children are getting mobile phones and having access to this technology is getting younger and younger. So it's so very important that we as adults act as their first line of defence. We're making sure that they can use it and explore it in a really safe, nurturing environment. Now, just to give you an idea of how your online safety is approached in schools, the majority of our computing curriculum is up to the schools to choose. But one thing that we can look to is the Education for a Connected World. Now, this huge document that was produced by the United Kingdom Council for Internet Safety has 117 ICANN statements for our schools to teach, and that goes all the way from reception up to Year 6. To give you an idea of how a comparison to that, the national curriculum has 3 sentences to do with online safety. Now, those 170 statements are all important. They all have a value, and it gives you an idea of how broad online safety is. And we can only discuss a tip of the iceberg at the moment. Now, to help our children with online safety, we also use 6 rules. So the first ones that we teach our children is zip, block, and flag. Zip is about us not sharing personal information or private information, which is our telephone number, our full name and address. We also use zip to remind our children to not talk about anything that is harmful, to always be kind. We then move on to block, which is about teaching children to block anybody that's not being kind to them, block anything that upsets them as well. Likewise, don't download anything that they are not comfortable with downloading, so it's blocking any viruses that might come onto their devices. And then the last one we also have is flag. This is where we're looking at going to talk to a trusted adult. If anything is worrying us, if anything is upsetting us, we can flag it to an appropriate adult, or we can also flag it to the admin. Now, the 3 that we've introduced recently is aimed a bit more towards us as adults. We've got talk, guide, and model. I'll look through those a bit more detail now. So talk, I really wish I'd called this chat when I first wrote these, because it should just be a light-hearted chat. We are just the same as we would say to them, "Oh, how was your day at school today?" I know not an awful lot of time they don't answer, but it's that chatting. It's building up a mutual trust between the two of you. Between us. It is. All too often, so 2 in 5 children will not disclose the worst thing that's happened to them online because they don't feel like the adults are going to listen. They don't feel like adults don't understand, and they don't feel like they're going to be heard. It's really important that we change that around. Also, lots of children just don't see the risk of what is happening. They don't see the risk of what the situation that they've got them into. So the reason that we aim for talk is because we want to try and make sure that we are talking to them, and we can then notice if there are changes in their behaviour. Things like discussing with your child, setting up house rules. How much screen time are they allowed to use? How much time are we allowed to have on our devices? Who are they talking to? It's all about keeping those open, calm conversations. Sorry about this. What apps are they playing on? Did you see a funny video yourself a little while ago? It's all about supporting them through it, not parenting. But likewise, it's also about making sure that you're checking your own privacy privacy settings. Checking the apps through, talking to other parents, sharing experiences. Is there a new app you've heard your child mention that you could then discuss with somebody else? It's all about sharing with other parents so that we're all aware and we're all educated, we all have an understanding of what the current trends are and what the current things to be aware of. Now, likewise, alongside Talk, we've got the Internet Watch Foundation. They've also used Talk as an acronym to get us thinking about talking to our children about online abuse, starting the conversation, and listening to our children's concerns. Now, we're not suggesting that it is always that sort of in-depth conversation, but it is important that sometimes we do have those awkward conversations. Agreeing ground rules, what's allowed, what's not allowed, and making sure that those ground rules are followed through in your privacy settings. Are the children allowed to download certain apps? Do they have to check with you your password? Learning about the platforms that they enjoy, co-exploring them, learning from them. It is important that we share their online world and we get to know about how to use tools such as apps or privacy settings. To help you with that, there is a fantastic website called internetmatters.org, which has a lot of guides of how to set up different apps for your parental controls and how to set up different devices, because we do need to make sure our routers are set up as well for privacy, to limit their screen time. And we also have childnet.com. If you're not sure how to start your conversations, they have a lot of really good resources there to start your questions. We also have CEOP, which has produced some brilliant resources recently, and they've entitled it #AskTheAwkward. Now, a lot of these are aimed at the older children, but there's no reason why we couldn't use them now to start our conversation with our primary school children. This is one such example that I picked, which was about two-way trust, but there's lots of other ones on there, so it's well worth a little look. The next one is to guide. Now, behind the scenes, there's quite a few we need to be doing with guiding. This is where we're looking at our parental controls, where we're checking up apps, we're making sure our password is nice and strong and nice and safe, and we're not sharing it with our children. As we've already said, the online world is a hugely complex adult environment, so it's really important that we are helping to guide our children through. When it does go wrong, it can be really easy to get cross, to get angry, but that's the last thing we need to do. It's not easy, but it's important that we do talk through with our children. What's gone wrong? What did they decide to do? Children are wired to make mistakes, sadly. And in this very complex world, they will not think twice about clicking on that wrong button or clicking on something else, which is why we must make sure our passwords are protected and their devices are set up correctly to help them through. We've got Common Sense Media, so if your child is asking for a new app to be installed, you can have a look on Common Sense Media, and it will give you an idea of what the age rating is, and some different, whether it is appropriate, what sort of content is in there. We also have the PEGI age rating that should be on all of the app stores. That gives you a minimum age for the apps that you might be looking at with your children. And there's also a Safer Internet Centre. This gives lots of guides towards more sort of social media platforms that can be really helpful for us to look through. And then the last one that does tie in with guide, beg pardon. If it really does go wrong, there's free, easy to contact resources. Obviously, do come in and talk to your schools. They need to be aware of what's going on so that they can support you and support your child. But likewise, we have free areas that we can report to as well. Report Harmful Content is run by the Internet Watch Foundation and another charity, and it's there to support removal of online bullying materials, of inappropriate memes, or anything else that worries and upsets people. Likewise, if it's a very, very serious case, then we can report to the Internet Watch Foundation or even the CEOP organisation, which is a police-run organisation that's there to prosecute people and look out for our children. The last one is to model. As we've already said, children will look at us for their behaviour cues. They will copy what they see us doing. And it's so very important we're really thinking about what behaviour are we modelling to our children as regards to social media, with regards to how we're acting and just talking to people. It's important that we do take time to learn together, explore together. If they're asking about a new app, We can model looking up on common sense media to discuss what the app is and discuss what if we feel it's appropriate. We can also share our own online behaviour, being kind online, thinking about the role model that we are being. Keep your information safe. It's important children realise that there is a boundary to sharing passwords, and there's also a really good reason as to why you've got passwords on their devices so that you can monitor what they're doing and help them with making those right choices. Be mindful of your own screen time. I'm fully aware that our lives are on our phones all the time, but it's so important that when we do have those opportunities to sit down together and share that social time, that we're making the most of it. It's also important we show to them that the amazingness of the internet. Let them join in on video chats as the pandemic has happened. Let them use Alexa. We cannot shelter them away from it because that would be the worst thing we could do for their lifetime. But it is so very important that we are being very careful of the experiences that we allow our children to have. Now that's just a very quick overview about the 6 rules that might be used in your school. But when you're talking to your children, it's important to have these in your mind so you can relate back to that similar language so that everybody is talking a similar message for your children. All of these can apply to offline behaviour as well as online behaviour, and that's why we use these rules, because it's very easy to introduce at a young age. We're talking about how starting those conversations at a young age and discussing things with them so that when they might be getting their first devices, they're already there. That mutual trust and the sharing is already built in. Now, obviously, if you do have older children, it might be a little bit of a shock that we need to change things and we need to make sure that we do get our ground rules in place. And maybe we might need to look at resetting up devices. But it is so important we do it now. So many of our children might never have a problem. They might never send a horrible message or receive one. But it's so important, like crossing a road, like going swimming, we put these things in place now. Now, if there's any questions, hopefully the chat function is working. So please do put any comments below. We will be here until about 12 o'clock. So by all means, ask any questions. If you think of any questions at another time, then we do have, we are on Twitter, which is ES Primary. And although we are catered more for education, and we work with a lot of computing needs around East Sussex, if you ever have any questions, we'll do what we can to support you as well. Thank you very much for your time, though. As I said, if there are any questions, please do ask away in the chat below. Hopefully they will appear. Okay, so whilst we're waiting for some questions to come in, hopefully, I thought it'd be helpful to go through some of the useful websites. So ChildNet has recently been updated, and it's got some brilliant resources on there for us to look through as professionals or as parents. And it's also brilliantly put through into this to different areas. So, for example, if we wanted to look at parent and carers, obviously you've got the parental controls. It's a really helpful website, so you can look through, and it gives you some little points. So obviously as children grow, become more accomplished users of technology, you may learn how to disable or bypass the parental controls in place. So it's really important we do keep on checking those and having those conversations with them as about the importance of all these devices. All too often, the children are, when we do have a problem with children, it's because they've set up other accounts themselves or other emails and other TikTok accounts. So it's really important we're very careful with those conversations and looking over what is on their accounts. It's also really important we have built up that trust. So we're talking about that it's not us just spying on them, but it is us working together and making sure that we're guiding them through. Now, likewise on ChildNet, there's a lot of brilliant examples of how to start a conversation. There's 5 little tips as to what to ask yourself, and they can also ask what to ask your children. One really good tip is to do it in the car if you're not sure how to start it. Do it in the car where you are initially. It's those drives to schools. It can just be a quick little conversation, but likewise, neither of you can escape. And also in ChildNet, we have a fantastic example of the family agreement. Now, obviously, it's important that you make this your own family agreement. You nurture it to your family, your situation. But there's lots of really good examples on here of what to look through and what to think about and consider. It's also really important that we try and abide by these rules as ourselves. These are family rules that we all need to abide by and follow, because it's about, as we've already said, it's about we are a role model for our children. So it's those rules that we agree, we also need to be following ourselves, and giving the children the power, the consent to remind us of those rules, because that's all part of that mutual trust, that mutual conversation. Also on ChildNet, we have a fantastic resource to support you with talking. So also a brilliant example, another fantastic resource through ChildNet is talking through some little guides. So as we said, start with the positive. As we said about talking, it's about starting with the positive and working together. These conversations aren't always easy to start, but it's so very important we do try and keep up with them. And hopefully then, if anything is going wrong, if anything is concerning, our children will come to us and talk to us about it. And we could also monitor any changes that we feel is occurring with them, any changes in behaviour or changes in mood. As we've already mentioned, but I won't show you, there is also the RC Awkward resource that's been released from CEOP, and that could be helpful to asking a bit more of a trickier questions. And likewise, the CEOP website is designed for a very quick reporting. You just click this button in the middle if there's anything we see of concern. And likewise, we do have the Childline phone number at the bottom. So if any of our children are really feeling like they don't want to talk to a trusted adult, they can contact Childline, and hopefully they'll support them with discussing this with some adults around them. As we're saying, the point of all this talking is to make sure that our children know we are here. We do understand. We are ready to have a conversation, no matter how awkward they feel. They don't need to be worried about getting in trouble. Okay, we might get really frustrated that they've decided to say a very silly thing, or decided to post something, but we need to make sure we're guiding them through so that they realise that we're there to help them. We're there to make sure that these sorts of things are not going to impact anybody in the future. And likewise underneath again, although CEOP is a bit more aimed at more the young, when your children are maybe getting a bit older, there is a lot of brilliant things on here. CEOP do produce some fantastic videos to support you with little thing with supporting your children, and make some things that are quite tricky to talk about a bit more relatable and easy to talk about as well. They do have a few little things though that we do use in primary schools, such as Jessie and Friends. So if you want to know more about some of the resources that your children will be watching, Jessie and Friends is one of the ones that should be used in the majority of classrooms in Year 1, in Key Stage 1. And again, of course, we have the NSPCC that do a lot of hard work for supporting our supporting us and supporting our children. And obviously online safety is one of their main concerns at the moment. There are lots of different resources, lots of quick things that we can access as parents for guides, but they also support our conversations with other adults because they're often promoting the latest concerns, the latest worries, and they can often just be a bit quicker to notice things that we need to be preparing for with our children. One of the other really important things that we actually haven't discussed this morning is the huge and shocking increase in fake news. Obviously, Donald Trump used this an awful lot when he was discussing things, but we need to be really aware and educating our children of how so much false information is put online. Nothing more has highlighted this again than the pandemic. We need to make sure our children know what is a reliable source, and when we say a reliable source, it might not be the easiest source to read. It might not be the easiest source for us to read because it doesn't agree with our own views, but we do know it's an unbiased and a reliable source. We aren't just reading things off of people on Instagram or on TikTok, but we're looking for people that are educated and have studied for years in fields that we can trust. And it's obviously so important we are making our children aware of this. Now, all of this we can do, we can teach them until we're blue in the face at school. And hopefully your children are having weekly lessons for online safety, because it is, as we've seen, so very much in everybody's lives. The problem we have though is we need your help. We need your help to be there, to be acting as that first line of defence when you're at home, when your children are with you, when they're using their personal devices. We can only do so much in schools. We can teach them until we're blue in the face, but at the end of the day, you're the one that they look to for the guiding and the modelling, because you're the one that sets those rules. And it's so important that we are all working together. We're all using the same language to support our children through, reducing those risks, allowing them to explore the online world, because that's going to be such a huge part of their lives, but allowing them to explore it in a safe and controlled and sensible way. It's so important we use the resources that are out there. There are a lot of sort of fantastic people that are trying to work really hard to get this information. And it's really important, if you do find information, please do share it. Share it with friends, share it with family. Because we need to make sure everybody is aware of online safety, not just for our children, but for ourselves. Hopefully, the online safety bill that's going through Parliament soon will change an awful lot of how the landscape looks and how we as adults can have control of our own information. And hopefully it will change the landscape for our children. But with trends such as Facebook, although it's still one of the most used social media platforms, as it is reducing because children are looking to move away from what their parents traditionally used. They're looking to move away to the shorter content. We're seeing them switch onto things like TikTok. We're seeing them switch onto Snapchat because it's not always a publicly available message. So it's so very important we are having these conversations with them. Just talking about, oh, who did you see? And also on the conversation of TikTok, we do need to make sure we're aware that TikTok, Roblox, they're really dangerous apps that we're very aware are also really popular at the moment. We need to be very careful because their algorithms, the TikTok algorithm is often swayed towards adult content, it's often swayed towards content that is really not appropriate for our children. And as we've already said, we do have those groups out there that are looking through TikTok. Can they try and find those girls that aren't necessarily with any adults around them, are necessarily on their own, or even doing the really dangerous thing of showing off their school uniform? It's scary how little information some people need to do some really horrible things. Children often have the assumption that people are going to come and do something to them physically. But actually, some of the worst things they do remotely, or they get the children to do to themselves. There's been lots and lots of cases in America recently where children have gone to open their first bank account. And actually, it turns out they already had a bank account, they've already run up a huge bill or overdraft, beg pardon, and that's because their information was posted online by their parents, and those information was then used by somebody else to create a bank account and to run up lots and lots of debt. Things like posting school uniform pictures can be a very big clue to some of these people that we don't want accessing our children. By all means, share it in a private group, share it in a group with our family, because it is important we share those first day back at school moments. But we need to think really carefully of who we're sharing them with, who has access to our social media. As always, do put any questions in the live chat. I'm hoping that it is actually working on my phone. But if you do have any questions or comments, please do put them into the chat. I apologise if it's a case of they're not coming up on my screen. And if you do happen to watch the video at another time, please do put some comments on there as well, as this is a chance to have your questions answered. I might have to research them and look back and over things like common sense media to get the answer, but I'll come back to you as quick as I can. Okay, one last thing we're also looking to do this year is a competition. So obviously we have our 6 characters. we feel like we need to give them a character. We need to give them a story. We need to give them a personality. So what we're asking for our children to do is to come up with a Mr. Men style story for each of our characters in their own Mr. Men style world. And obviously we can add in other characters such as misinformation. And it's up to them to decide what characters our children have. what personalities our characters have. Are they going to be happy? Are they going to be miserable? Are they going to be grumpy? Are they going to be sad? So very similar to what we see in the Mr. Men comic books. But writing it so we can use these stories to remind children of what each of them stand for. So as we already said, Zip is about our not sharing that private information, making sure we're not talking to people. Oh, thank you. Yep, I can see your messages popped up there. Thank you very much. On both of them, that's very helpful. So we've got our. So we're looking for a book to be written for each of our. So we will be picking a book for each of our characters, and they'll be published on Amazon, so that the schools around the UK can hopefully buy into them as well, and they'll be sold for as low a price as possible. But it's for children to be creating their own stories, just to give these characters a bit more of a presence, to give them a bit more of a link that our children can also enjoy them. As we've already said, the winning stories will be selected by the digital leaders from my school that I'm based at, and they'll be working to, and then hopefully we'll be publishing them on Amazon for everybody to enjoy. And the children that win will get a couple of copies of their book as well for free. I think so as we've already said, if there's any questions, do post them up on the stream for me, please. It'd be fantastic. If there's any comments of anything you'd like to hear in maybe future workshops that we could do, please do let us know. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I'm afraid we are coming up to our time's up. Thank you to those of you that did post some questions. If you do have any other questions, please do comment on the recording, and we'll get back to you as quick as we can. Hopefully, this few messages that we've read out today have helped some of us. It is, and hopefully some of us will be thinking a bit more about how important these conversations with our children are, and also with our schools. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and look forward to hearing from some of you soon.